Happening now on Grid Tonight. The motorsports community lost a Hall of Fame broadcaster last week. How significant was Ken Squier's influence as the great American voice of motorsports? One of the top underdogs in the NASCAR Xfinity Series is getting a big shot to prove himself next year. Can Josh Williams find success at Kaulig Racing? Two-time World Rally champion Collie Rovanpera is stepping back to a part-time role in 2024. Why is he doing this at only 23 years old? Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. With me, Joe Samniego and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone to comment and chat below, ask questions, and consider supporting us through Super Chat. Now, Matt, take it away with our top story this evening, a very somber story.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Kobe. Hello, everybody. And we'll start with the sad news that reached us not so long after we went off the air with this show last Wednesday, when legendary motorsports broadcaster and NASCAR Hall of Famer Ken Squier passed away at the age of 88. The native of Vermont was one of NASCAR's original broadcasters from the sport's early beginnings, his voice leading the way and telling the story of NASCAR during this critical time period. There's no telling where we'd be today without Ken Squier. Ken kicked off his career at MRN, the Motor Racing Network, in the early 70s and obtained the power to draw people in with his unique voice and style. He's best known for his iconic call of that final lap, the 1979 Daytona 500, the first live flag-to-flag NASCAR race aired on television in the USA, of course, on the CBS network. That quote, of course, that everyone knows, it's painted into all of our minds. There's a fight between Cal Yarbrough and Donnie Allison. The tempers are overflowing. They're angry. They know they have lost, and what a bitter defeat. Squier went on to stay in the booth as the lead for CBS Sports until 1997 and worked as a studio host until 2000. He also contributed to NASCAR's coverage on TNN and TBS. In 2013, his contributions were widely recognized by NASCAR and the Hall of Fame with the creation of the Squier Hall Award for NASCAR Media Excellence. It was created to honor Squier and longtime voice of MRN and great friend of Ken, Barney Hall. This award recognizes members of the motorsport media who make significant contributions with their coverage of NASCAR. In 2018, Squier was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame and honored in the greatest way possible as a true legend of the sport. Photo taken by Jared Tilton from Getty Images. Plenty of tributes have been rolling in this week, and we'll kick off with a couple here. First, from one of his co-commentators, David Hobbs, who said, Ken was the only reason I made the move from driver to TV analyst. He suggested I meet with CBS management at the end of 1965. My first broadcast was in August of 76, which led to 41 years in US TV. Excuse me. I'm eternally grateful to Ken, with whom it wouldn't have been possible for such a long career. A statement from Jim France of NASCAR says, though we never sat behind the wheel of a stock car, Ken Squier contributed to the growth of NASCAR as much as any competitor. Ken was a superb storyteller, and his unmistakable voice is the soundtrack to many of NASCAR's greatest moments. His calls on TV and radio brought fans closer to the sport, and for that he was a fan favorite. Ken knew no strangers, and he will be missed by all. On behalf of the France family and all of NASCAR, I offer my condolences to the family and friends of Ken Squier. Joe, welcome to Grid Tonight, your first appearance on the year. And as I said before we went on the air, first time the two of us have been on the show together for a very long time. How significant was Ken Squier's impact on motorsports broadcasting during the early days of NASCAR's history on television?
It played a huge role, and I think a lot of folks don't realize, especially some of the newer fans of motorsports, whether it's NASCAR, F1, or any motorsport that's on live television, Ken Squier played a big reason on why it's on live television. We got to remember, back then you had three channels, your NBC, CBS, ABC, broadcast television. Live TV was not the norm. A lot of times for motorsports, they'll show you the short clips, so in the little recaps, they'll show you the exciting crashes, tell you a little about who won the race, go to the next story. Ken Squier really was a person that said, hey, Daytona 500, this is a race y'all should be covering from flag to flag, start to finish. And this didn't just impact on only the Daytona 500, but a ton of other various motorsports disciplines. Where the 1979 Daytona 500, when you have that many viewers tuning in, watching this all unfold live, no script, nothing, all just right there. This is what racing's about, and Ken Squier was there to narrate everything for the fans. This played a huge role in the growth of NASCAR in other television stations saying, we want motorsports, where it's Formula One, IndyCar. It grew to American eyes and exposed motorsports to more fans. Can you imagine if that did not occur? If the 1979 Daytona 500 was just another highlight package. We've all seen the finish of the 1976 Daytona 500 when David Pearson and Richard Petty had that dramatic last lap crash, Pearson crossing the finish line, but almost nobody has seen the entire race because it wasn't covered flag to flag. Ken played a huge role in getting live motorsports on television. The other thing I'll also say too, and this is something I think a lot of people forget. Remember, Ken Squier, he grew up with motorsports, covering motorsports from the short track up to NASCAR and beyond. Can you imagine those CBS executives then said, okay, we will cover the 1979 Daytona 500 live, but we're going to have one of our typical sportscasters that cover a stick of ball sport or a news anchor cover it that wasn't familiar with motorsports. That would change the entire history and approach to motorsports journalism. By having Ken Squier there, he set the bar high for everybody that followed him. And like David Hobbs said, it was because of Ken Squier. Ken saw the talent and what he could do to bring in motorsports to audiences. Ken ensured that people that were devoted to motorsports journalism, providing the best coverage, got the opportunities in journalism and not people unfamiliar with it. Take the sport seriously. This isn't a regional thing. This is potential for a national sport. NASCAR is definitely at where it is today, all in large part to Ken Squier.
Yeah, absolutely. I came into NASCAR in 2007, but you go back through the history and all those 70s and 80s races, Ken is all over them. Adam says, as someone who is also from New England like Ken was, he was a legend, called so many big races in NASCAR, so many memories. If you've got some Ken Squier memories, get them in the chat and we'll see if we can read them out throughout the show. Thunder Road Speedway in Bar, Vermont is part of Ken Squier's history. And as you say, Joe, you know, NASCAR, and it's a big thing to say, but NASCAR covered on television probably wouldn't be the same as we get now with all, and as you mentioned, there's so many different options in terms of your viewing now with television and streaming and whatever else. But in terms of the sport in the 70s, it just wasn't covered like it is today. You look at the NASCAR Classics YouTube channel, they're posting stuff that's half an hour or an hour for that, because that's how what the race was covered. It was highlight packages until we took it live in the end of the 70s and into the 80s, and Ken Squier was a massive part of that. Let's take a look at some more of the industry's response to the sad passing last week. Dale Jarrett said that Ken Squier was a true legend in the sport. He'll be greatly missed. What a trio that is there in the booth at Darlington a couple of years ago. James Pike of Flow Racing said, so great is Ken Squier's influence that he's not only inspired the generation directly following his, but also the next two after that. In a world where most announcers see the trees before the forest, Ken saw the forest before the trees. NASCAR on Fox lead announcer Mike Joy said, someone yesterday turned one of Ken's phrases back on him, writing, whatever race broadcasting in is, Ken Squier was. Dale Earnhardt Jr. said Ken Squier was there when NASCAR was introduced to the rest of the world in 1979 at that Daytona 500. I'm convinced that race would have not had its lasting impact had Ken not been our lead narrator. We still ride the wave of that momentum created on that day. Ken's words and energy were perfection on a day when NASCAR needed it. I'm forever grateful for his major role in growing stock car racing. Rest in peace. And one last one from former Cup Series racer Rick Mast, who said, when listening to Ken Squier's broadcast, two things were a fact. One, you were 100% convinced that the race was the biggest thing going on in the planet on that day. And two, you were 100% convinced the drivers were modern day gladiators, bigger than life heroes. Rest in peace. Joe, back to you. What's the most important thing that you've learned from listening to Ken Squier for all these years and will remember about him the most?
What I'll remember him the most is he had this stoic presence on the air. As Rick Mass said, if you were listening to Ken Squier, you knew this was the biggest event going on. Ken presented it as this is a big time important event. He brought the tone of each race, I feel, in a very professional manner, but kept everyone engaged. Sometimes I think we've all seen where a commentator, a sportscaster could get a little bit on the too comedic side or a little bit watered down too many of the terms for fans. Ken, he seemed to always be perfect at painting the picture. And the one thing I think a lot of people learned a lesson of, and this is something not a lot of folks talk about, Ken Squier was part of the founding of the Motor Racing Network as well, too, on radio, where you don't have the visual images to share what's going on. So he really worked hard in painting the picture for listeners. I think that's something a lot of folks have learned, especially when you get into motorsports. I know I was very privileged. Alaska Raceway Park, I was the on-track announcer there. And when I knew I was going to get that opportunity, what did I do? I watched past videos of the Daytona 500, especially with Ken Squier, Ned Jarrett, when I looked at other races. But Ken Squier, that was somebody who's like, how does he paint the picture? I know this is a short track, but I want to do the best job possible because at the end, we all care about the sport. Ken brought it on such a professional level. And overall, I think that will stand out with me the most. Growing up, I still remember listening to him calling the Daytona 500, including 1994 when Sterling Marlin got his first win as a Cup Series driver at the Daytona 500. All the way up to 2000, where for the last time CBS got to cover the sport, but Ken was there at the 2001 Daytona 500 at the beginning of the race and the end of the race. I was very happy to see him at Darlington for the throwback weekends because he always just brought that element of from the past, childhood growing up, where you had the excitement of hearing him introduce the field in the starting lineup, row by row, each racers, and then calling the race. It's something very missed, but it's going to live on forever thanks to all the past broadcasts being available online for viewers to watch. And all the lessons he shared with everybody will transcend for many generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would recommend, I can't remember the name of it. If Matthew Owens is watching, he put me onto this. If you've got a Spotify account, there's an MRN documentary series about the growth and how MRN got started and everything else. Lots of Ken Squier involved in that. So if you haven't checked that out, or you're a new NASCAR fan, go back and listen to those. If you've got a Spotify account, or even if you haven't, you can listen to them for free. They are excellent. A lot of Barney Hall and everything in there from the early days of MRN. The Motorsports Mount Rushmore has gone with Ken Squier and now Murray Walker on it. Two legends that we've lost in the last couple of years, and all of the guys and girls here at Grid Network pass on our condolences. Rest in peace. What a legend, Ken Squier. Let's move on to our second story of the evening, Joe, and you're going to lead us off with some stuff from the second tier from the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, the Xfinity Series season's over. Silly season still in gear though, and silly season surprises. Log this one. Colic Racing signed Josh Williams to drive the number 11 Chevrolet full time in the Xfinity Series. Now, Williams has built up a reputation as an older school racer and underdog in the garage area. Many fans, viewers were officially introduced to him last year at Atlanta in the spring race when NASCAR disqualified him from the race due to violating the damaged vehicle policy clock. He parked his car at the start-finish line, walked away at the displeasure. As it sat there, he was suspended from one race following the Xfinity race at COTA, but won over the heart of many NASCAR fans with his personality. When Williams goes to college, he'll be bringing over longtime sponsor Alloy Employer Services to be the primary partner. Chris Rice, president of Colic, said Williams has fought tooth and nail for everything in his racing career and feels like he'll be a good fit for the team. In 186 career starts in the Xfinity Series, Williams only has 11 top 10 finishes and no top 5s. 2016, he won 2 ARCA Menard Series races at Nashville Fairgrounds and Madison, driving for his own team, Josh Williams Motorsports. When 2024 rolls around, he'll be in an entirely different world, going for DGM racing to Colleague Racing. Photo courtesy of the team. Now, Matt, did you ever think the underdog driver like Josh Williams was capable of landing a ride with Colleague Racing? And do you think he could live up to the new expectations that he comes with this competitive equipment?
Well, it was a bit of a bolt from the blue, wasn't it, when this was announced to a lot of people. Colleague Racing, of course, one of the top teams in the Xfinity Series over the last couple of years, with Justin Haley and AJ Allmendinger winning races down there for them. And this is, I think, that whole Josh Williams thing that happened at Atlanta that you documented, Joe. A lot of people looked on at that from the outside of the NASCAR world and looked at it and went, gee, what a joke. But it's done wonders for Josh throughout the season, and here he is getting a top tier ride. Great underdog story. If he can get in there and mix it with the regulars at the front of the field in the Xfinity Series, which I'm sure he's got the capability to do so. There is more of the have and have nots in the Xfinity Series in terms of equipment than we see in the Cup Series, especially now with the new car up in the Cup Series. But Josh can get in there and get something rolling with that team. We know how good Colleague are. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him getting some really good results. And maybe not a win, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. There'll certainly be a playoff contender when it comes to the end of the season next year. And yeah, another great underdog story. And well done to Josh Williams and whole of his camp and the Colleague team for getting all this put together.
Yeah, phenomenal that the team got this all put together. And overall, I agree with a lot of things you said. One of the big things, especially the super speedways, Talladega, Daytona, let's throw in there Atlanta too, the way that races, prime opportunities for him to get that win in the playoffs. But I will not be surprised if he is contended for top 10s and his elusive first top 5 finish. But one big factor, the chemistry between him and the team, already Colleague Racing. They also started up a late model program and competed last weekend at Florence Motor Speedway in South Carolina. They entered the race with Williams behind the wheel. Unfortunately, it didn't end well as Josh Williams got caught up in a crash and the car suffered some damage. So how important is this first step for both the driver and the team to get that head start on building the chemistry for 2024?
Yeah, very important. Obviously, new crew chief, they'll do it differently at Colleague as he was doing at his own team and at DGM over the last couple of years. So it's all about getting the glue going between all of the guys in the crew, in the team, and Josh, and how they all work together. And they're not the only ones doing it, because Josh Berry's been doing some stuff over the next couple of weeks as well with his new crew chief for next year. So there's a lot of this going on now. It seems the new thing for November, where everyone's already preparing for next year. No time off. Everybody will be off tomorrow, of course. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody stateside for tomorrow. But yeah, this is exactly what they needed. What when there's time on your hands and you can go out and put together a little program over the winter, then why not? If you've got the budget to do it and the capability to go and do so, get yourself prepared for Daytona, which generally is one of the craziest and biggest races of the Xfinity season, especially that one at the beginning of the year. And then, as you said, Atlanta the week after. So we've got 2 super speedway races to kick off the year. You need to be in tune with your crew and the crew chief and everything else. So it's I think it's a great idea. And as I said before, they'll be towards the pointy end of the field at the beginning of the season, no doubt, and all the extra testing of such. I know it's not in the Xfinity car, of course, but it's kind of like testing to get themselves all prepped for next season is always a plus.
It'll be a big plus. Get that chemistry going, be hitting the ground running strong. The one sort of advantage, though, I see, especially with Daytona, Atlanta, concerning the nature of those races, if you have a fast car, you can wake your way to the front, contend for the win. You don't have to worry too much about strategy, especially the Xfinity Series, where we know caution flags are bound to happen, not just for the stage breaks, but for the big one, avoiding the big one. Las Vegas, though, that's going to be the one where I think really the chemistry is going to be showing. Did they hit it right, or are they missing the mark a little bit? That's not till early March. So overall, I think if they could do good in the first 2 races, regardless of finish, whether it's a top 10, top 5, or even better win, they'll be ahead of the game. And I think by March, That's going to be the true indicator of where this team is. And of course, we encourage everyone to comment with your thoughts as well too on Colleague Racing's newest hire, and also on this surprising news from World Rally Championship. The two-time World Rally Champion Kali Rovanpera left some people feeling surprised when he announced that he won't return full-time in 2024. The 23-year-old Finnish racing driver signed a new multi-year contract extension with Toyota Gazoo Racing World Rally Team and will compete in select rallies next year alongside Johan Halttunen. Looking at Toyota's other rally racers, of course, you have 8-time World Rally Champion Sebastian Ogier will also return with a similar part-time schedule. Elfyn Evans, Takamoto Kasuta, they will continue their full-time World Rally Championship campaigns in the Toyota Gazoo Racing Team. In a video, Rovanpera explained his decision to step away from full-time rally competition, mentioning how much this commitment takes a toll on you mentally and physically. So he feels 2024 will be a good year for him to take a step back, recharge the batteries. He intends to eventually return to a full-time WRC competition in the future. When he's not competing in rallies next year, Rovanpera plans to compete in other racing events across different disciplines, which includes drifting, photo courtesy of Toyota Gazoo Racing. Now, Kobe, Matt, I feel like not too long ago we were talking about this, maybe last year in the grid ranking, about can he beat the next Sebastian Lowe, Ogier, continue on. What are your thoughts on Rovanpera taking a step back at such a young age? And does his decision bring more question about which rally driver can be the future face of World Rally Championship?
I'll be honest, Joe. This caught me off guard. I'm admittedly not as invested in World Rally Championship as you, Matt, and a few others are on the team. But to see a 23-year-old Kali Rovanpera decide like next year I don't really want to run full time, that's really a shocker. You know that someone at 23 years old seems to be burnt out already. But at the same time, I'm going to say more power to him if he feels like he's not fully invested in this physically or mentally. As long as his team, is able to work something out with him, more power to him for deciding to take a step back, recharge the batteries, and come back in the future. And if you haven't watched that video that we just talked about, I highly encourage you to go to Kali Rovanpera's YouTube page and watch that video. It's less than 2 minutes. I believe it's about maybe 90 seconds long. Yeah, he just explains, that he wants to do some other things right now in life, and how he's while he's 23 years old. He said, "I've been rallying for 15 years now." So 15 years is a long time. He's been doing it since he was a kid, and all those years on the road, all the preparations. It seems like it's really gotten to him. I mean, he just wants to take a year, to just do some things that he enjoys while still, having one foot into the World Rally Championship and one foot out to have some fun drifting and just simply relaxing and not feeling the pressure to go out and compete for a championship. And as you said, Joe, he fully intends to come back to World Rally Championship full time. So he's 23 now, really young. There's still plenty of time for him to return full time and click off several more World Rally Championships. Maybe he'll get 8 just like Sebastian Ogier. Who knows? I think Rovanpera, regardless, still has a very bright future. And he did sign a contract extension with Toyota Gazoo Racing, which shows you that the team is still fully behind him and supports what he wants to do. And I think that's the most important thing here. It's just really surprising to a lot of people that someone this young would decide to take a step back and not go out there and continue racing full time. And we know the motorsports industry in general, it really does take a lot out of so many weeks on the road throughout the year, all the preparation you have to do during the week to get to prepare for all these races. But most people, they just really just keep forcing themselves to get through it until like age 40 when most of them really decide to stop. But Rovanpera's taking a different route. He's like, I'm in my early 20s. I'm a little tired now, so I'm just going. I got 2 championships, so I might as well just put the pause button and go compete for championships at a later date. Because if Kali Rovanpera never ran another rally, he hadn't really nothing else to prove. He got 2 championships, and the only question is, that you talk about, Joe, is that like who's going to be the face of World Rally Championship. I think it's too soon to say, that it might not be Kali Rovanpera anymore, but just because he's taken a step away, I just know whenever I think World Rally Championship, the 2 Sebastians always come to mind. I think of Sebastian Ogier and Sebastian Loeb, and after winning another championship, Kali Rovanpera starts to creep in my mind now as someone who that could be. And like, no offense to others out there, like your Elfyn Evans or Takamoto Kasuda or Thierry Neuville, but when I think World Rally Championship, those aren't the first rally races that come to mind. I think it's certainly going to be interesting to see who can be that new OJ, who can be that new Logan, and be the face of the series. But I know one thing: the 2024 World Rally Championship right now is completely wide open. There's no telling who's going to be the champion next year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kobe. We've got hots and knots to come. I've got hots and knots on this whole thing, and one of the hots is that next year is just wide open now, with Evans clearly the team leader at Toyota, with the likes of Tanak and Neuville at Hyundai. Best chance for any of them. I know Tanak's got one world championship already, but best chance of any of them to pick up a world championship next year, because Rovanperä over the last 2.5 years, it's just been sublime, absolutely stunning. Some of the drives he's put in over this little period has been fascinating. But as Neuville and Tanak said, just there must be something wrong with the way that WRC is either promoted or run. If the 23-year-old has already decided, just take some time away. He's got plenty of time to come back and win some more championships. He clearly knows he's on top of his game. The schedule is one thing. We had Rally Japan last not this weekend gone, but the weekend before, final round of the championship. They've only got really until Christmas off, and then they're back into it with the pre-event tests and the recce and everything for Monte Carlo, which is on the same weekend as the Rolex 24 at Daytona, end of January. So unlike Formula One and MotoGP, which wrap up this coming weekend and they're off till March, the WRC is a full 12 months basically of on the road or on planes, flying around across the world and competing in rallies. So you can see why Rovanperä has done it. There's been so much talk about mental health over the last few years globally, not just in sport, but just in the world. Maybe that's got part to do with it. He's got obviously full support of the team with the new contract, and he's got a countryman running the team in Jari-Matti Latvala, former driver, of course, as well. So they'll have an understanding of what's been going on. So we don't know which rounds he's going to come back and do. Certainly, I wouldn't have thought Monte Carlo would be one of them. That would be an OGA run if they're going to share the car. And when he does come back, he'll just come back and win, I guess, like Ogier's done over the last couple of years with his part schedule. Just breeze in, pick up 25 points, a power stage victory, and then disappear off for a couple of months and come back and do the next one. But real disappointing in one way, but also, as I said, great that it opens up next season. But the only real shame is that we're not going to have 3 Toyotas running full time with the Ogier Rovanperä share going on in the third car, and Toyota have been running 4 cars for the last couple of years. So we're down 1 car in that sense, but does blow the championship wide open between Evans, Neuville, and Tanak. That's going to be a good battle that will run all through the season. But for Rovanperä, he'll be back, and he's always going to be fast, and he can sit on the beach and do some drifting and all that kind of thing, while he doesn't have to worry about doing media things and driving around stages at 50 kilometers an hour making pace notes.
One of the big things for me, I just find fascinating. You mentioned about Sebastian Loeb, Sebastian Ogier. Sebastian Loeb, I believe, won all his championships consecutively, 9 championships. Then Ogier almost did, but Tanak, 2019, I believe, ended any consecutive streak going. Then again, Ogier, and then Kalle Rovanperä. We're going to have a new World Rally champion, assuming, unless we know Ogier was really good in his part-time races. I doubt will be that good to claim another championship, but this throws it wide open. I'm just, in a way, shocked as well, too, because Loeb, Ogier, they were just first championship, second championship, kept going, no signs of stopping. I did not see any signs of stopping. And then Kalle Rovanperä to make this announcement, huge. Blows the door wide open for anybody to claim this championship. I have to say this is probably motivating to a lot of teams, saying this could be our opportunity. I'm really curious. I know on Sunday we talked a little bit about Eska Pakalapi. What's his future going to be? Could there be some room for him next year maybe? Definitely be following this throughout 2023 and into 2024. Matt, I know we have a Grid Endurance Performance Index as we start getting closer to the end of 2023.
Yeah, quickly before we talk about that, Petter Solberg was the only man to beat Sebastian Loeb to a championship in 2005. So he broke the little streak that was going on there. And Loeb did win one of his world championships while sat at home after having fallen off a push bike. And Marcus Gronholm crashed in Australia, and Loeb claimed the championship from his front room. Hello to Matthew Owen. Says, sorry for being late, but thank you for honouring the great Mr. Squier. For anyone who has ever wanted to broadcast motorsport, you have idolised and learned directly or indirectly from him. Yeah, very good point. And he always gets a mention when we do a NASCAR race on USRN every single week. Time for this week's Grid Endurance Performance Index update, which we missed last week because there was no racing on. There was 2 races on this weekend, and they were at Macau, where the FIA GT World Cup was held. Both races won by the same person. In his final outing as a Mercedes factory driver, congratulations to Raffaele Marciello for going out on top at Macau this weekend. He beat Eduardo Mortara in the qualifying race and Mauro Engel, his Mercedes stablemate, in the main race on Sunday to take both victories. Only a few more races to go. 2 more this weekend coming up at Adelaide in support of the Supercars finale, which we'll get to in a little while in Hots and Knots, I'm sure. The GT World Challenge Australia series wraps up on the weekend as part of that program, and that will leave us with only a very small handful of races to go. Points unchanged at the top of the standings because of that, and we still have our leaders and provisional champions Sebastian Buemi and Rio Hirakawa at the top, ahead of Brendan Hartley, their Toyota teammate. That is the top 10 as it has been for the last couple of weeks, and with all things being equal, will probably stay that way unless we get something very strange going on in the Asian Le Mans series, which is the next real big thing that kicks off in a couple of weeks. Yes, we've got a season starting before Christmas with 2 races at Sepang in a couple of weeks' time. With the EPI points there on screen, and we'll tell you about the results of the races from Adelaide on the show next week, and an update to any point standings that may occur. Now, time to go back to Kobe with some more of the headlines from the week.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. Toyota Gazoo Racing announced its 2024 FIA World Endurance Championship Hypercar driver lineup. The 2023 Hypercar champions, number 8 Toyota, will see no changes with Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley, and Rio Hirakawa returning. However, the number 7 Toyota will see one big change with the departure of Jose Maria Lopez. Ex-Formula One driver Nick DeFries replaces Lopez in the lineup alongside Mike Conway and Kamui Kobayashi. However, Lopez will remain in the Toyota family by representing the Lexus brand instead in LMGT3, with plans to drive for the Exodus ASP team in one of their Lexus RCF GT3s, graphic courtesy of Toyota Gazoo Racing. Ritomo Miyata, the 2023 champion of both Super GT and Super Formula in Japan, has a busy 2024 racing program planned. He'll compete in the European Le Mans Series' LMP2 category with Cool Racing, plus duties as a reserve driver for the Toyota Gazoo Racing Hypercar program in the WEC. While the team hasn't been announced yet, Miyata will also compete in Formula 2, and I think this is quite an interesting switch, with the Super Formula champion planning to race in F2, and this year's potential F2 champion, Teo Pourchaire, he's looking to go over to Super Formula next year, so it might be a fun swap between F2 and Super Formula champions go racing opposite series. Photo courtesy of Toyota Gazoo Racing. The class of 2024 for NASCAR Drive for Diversity Driver Development Program members were unveiled this week. In a partnership between NASCAR and Rev Racing, Andres Perez-Delar and LeVar Scott will run full-time in the ARCA Menard Series. Eloy Sebastian Lopez Falcon, Laney Buse, TJ DeCare, and Regina Sirvent will compete in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series, while Nathan Lyons, Cassidy Key, and Laquan McCoy Jr. will focus on the INEX Legend Car Series, graphic courtesy of NASCAR. Alpine confirmed its 6 drivers for the 2024 FIA World Endurance Championship season. 3 French drivers already working with the Alpine Endurance team will get a factory seat. Those 3 drivers are Nicolas Lapierre, Mathieu Vaxivière, and Charles Malasey. A 4th French driver is joining the team that made a name for himself in LMP2, Paul-Luc Chaton. The final 2 drivers won't be Frenchmen. It's Austria's Ferdinand Habsburg and Germany's Mick Schumacher, who will return as a Mercedes F1 reserve driver in 2024. The team confirmed it shortly after this announcement, and this is going to complete the Alpine WC lineup, driver pairings, and the prototype's livery will be revealed on February 7th, 2024, ahead of the season opener in Qatar, graphic courtesy of Alpine. In this weekend's Repco Supercars Championship season finale at Adelaide, Tickford Racing will run a special livery honoring the late Ken Block. Cam Waters will trade his typical black number 6 Monster Energy Ford Mustang for the number 43. Waters called Block an absolute legend of motorsports, saying the 43i Foundation approved the Block-inspired tribute livery. He hopes to do his best to celebrate Block this weekend and end up on the top step of the podium at Adelaide, just like Block did many times throughout his career. Photo courtesy of Tickford Racing. And now for some sentimental news. Earlier today, Sebastian Weldon, the son of two-time Indianapolis 500 champion Dan Weldon, won the 2023 Skip Barber Formula Race Series Championship in 16 races. Weldon won 6 times and had 13 podiums, a remarkable showing of consistency. According to Feeder Series America, the young and dreaded global development driver earned a $100,000 scholarship. This means he takes the prize money to move on to the next level, which is USF Juniors. But before the final race, Weldon said in a video message that he felt nervous about today, but he believes his dad, Dan Weldon, will be very proud of the driver that he has become. Graphic courtesy of Andretti Global. And now some sad news from North Wilkesboro Speedway. The track put out this statement saying that we lost our caretaker and a valuable member of the North Wilkesboro Speedway family over the weekend with the passing of Paul Call, a guardian of the property for decades. Paul cheerfully welcomed visitors and maintained the grounds, working for both Enix Staley and Speedway Motorsports. His spirit personified the passion of the community to bring the Speedway back, and we are grateful he got to see NASCAR's return. Earlier this year, we joined Wilkes County in remembering Paul today and send our condolences to his family. And now going to turn it over to Joe for a segment on women in motorsports.
Yeah, it's a rather quiet weekend in the world of women in motorsports, but a significant story to report on. Sophia Flores returned to Macau for the Macau Grand Prix weekend for the second time since her frightening crash in 2018. She was hospitalized. Many doubted if she would return after that vicious crash in 2018. She came back with Van Amstel Racing in the F3 Dallara, qualified 17th in the qualifying race. She took home 15th place, and then in the race itself, 11th place, just shy of the top 10. Kobe, Matt, I know we are all familiar with Sophia Flores, her career, and then, of course, this crash in Macau from 2018. How impressed were you by Sophia Flores' comeback performance at the track? And during the red flag interview, seemed so at home and just ready to keep racing.
Joe, I've been extremely impressed with the development of Sophia Flores as a race car driver compared to where she was in 2018. Compared to now, I know she's had several racing programs in the last couple of years or so. I've seen her improve a lot, and I remember when I remember watching that race when she became the first female to score points in FIA Formula 3 competition. She drove a really great race that day, and coming back to Macau, showing the type of speed that she did, thought it was a really impressive performance. And going into 2024, it's going to be interesting to see if she's going to be able to land with a much better team. I know the team that she was with this year, she didn't really have the best equipment on the grid, but maybe next year she'll be able to get a team, that's like a small step up in equipment, and maybe we can see her build upon her 2023 season in Formula 3. And yeah, you were right. I watched her red flag interview from Macau. Yeah, she seemed to be very upbeat, having a really good time, enjoying life, and as a race car driver, that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, it's been very impressive this year in the F3 Championship, as you said, Kobe. That second half of the season run where she's been scoring points or just outside them has been very good to see. That crash, as you mentioned, Joe, in 2018 was just awful. And glad to see her back there, and would have been great to see her get a top 10. Just missed out by one place, but been very impressed with Sophia, the way she's conducted herself, all the way back from when she was in Ginetta Juniors here in the UK many years ago, when she was 14 or 15, and beating all of the young kids in the UK. And you're like, whoa, who's this? It's come from Germany. Not much was known about her, and she was running at the front and winning races, and she's continued on that upward curve. Hopefully she'll be back. I should think she'll be back in F3 again next year. Nothing has yet been confirmed. I'm not pretty certain, but if she can get herself a decent seat in F3, hopefully that she can continue that upward trend next year.
Now, speaking about that upward trend, of course, this year she became the first woman to earn points in Formula 3 in July with a 7th place finish at Spa. About a month ago, Sophia said she wants to remain in Formula 3 and hopefully announce a team soon. So, Matt, overall, considering she was doing sports cars with LMP2, now back in Formula Series, do you believe her experience in sports car make her a driver who has more options in Formula Series or sports car racing?
Well, she's been part of the Alpine Academy over the last couple of years as well, and we've talked about Alpine on the show tonight. So maybe that might open a door for her down the line in full, hypercar or in LMP2 again. But adaptability is key, and we've seen a couple of guys as well that have dovetailed across a couple of some single-seater stuff and sports cars. Manuel Correa springs to mind because he's been doing some LMP2 stuff this year as well as F2. Adaptability is all these different tracks and car experiences can only benefit someone if you're out there every weekend or every other weekend potentially getting behind the wheel of a car. All experience, and she, as she's just talked about, she's certainly on an upward curve and looks to be probably in a good position, you would suggest, to be sort of the number one female in the single-seater ladder in Europe at the moment, and again, showing that speed at the weekend at Macau.
Yeah, regardless of what path Sophia Flores goes down, I really think that there's going to be some options for whether it's in Formula Series, as you mentioned, Joe, or sports cars. And if she goes to sports car race, she might be a good fit for the Iron Dames. Continue on with their success and bringing in fast racers, or who knows what else. Matt, you mentioned the Alpine connection. They're gonna be running the hypercar class next year, so maybe there'll be some potential to race with them in the future. But for right now, still on the road to Formula One, still trying to progress up the ladder. Sophia returns with a better team in F3 in 2024. Maybe she'll get an opportunity to move up to Formula 2 and see where things can go from there. And if she still wants to, stay down the open wheel route, maybe there could be opportunities in Formula E or even on the road to India over here, try to make it up to the IndyCar series. I know we really just have, Jamie Chadwick and Lindsey Brewer right now on the road to India. I think if Sophia Flores wanted to consider America as an option, I think that would be a really great place because we certainly need a lot more female racers on the road to Indy ladder system to eventually get to the NTT IndyCar series. But based on all the improvement we've seen from Sophia so far, I think she's going to have quite a few options in her future. And, all of that is going to depend on funding, which really is a lot of issue for many drivers out there. And Sophia, she's had problems, trying to secure funding in the past. Those same problems could certainly arise again.
Of course, more next week. Final episode of the Women in Motorsports for 2023, where we'll recap more of the latest news, some of the highlights from the 2023 season. One of the big highlights we're seeing for 2023. Pick a winner. Matt, let's get into pick a winner for the final race weekend for pick a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. The final race weekend for pick a winner. My chances of winnings were dashed last week, so I'm now out of the hunt. It is down to 3. Kobe is the leader by 2 points over Alex, with Matt B there in third. He needs to sweep the weekend, basically, on pick a winner to have a chance of snatching it from the grasp of Kobe over the weekend. We've got Formula One, of course, at Abu Dhabi, which we'll be able to do the picks for on the shows at the weekend and on social media. Tonight, we're going to do MotoGP and Supercars. We'll start on 2 wheels at Valencia for the final round of MotoGP. Sprint race, of course, on Saturday, as well as the main race. Championship up for grabs. Another twist again at Qatar last week with Jorge Martin's dodgy tyre in the main race on Sunday, costing him maybe a chance of the championship. We've seen some strange things happen at Valencia before. Valentino Rossi crashed in 2006 and handed Nicky Hayden the championship that year. Can something along those lines happen again? He keeps winning the sprint races. I'm going to go with Jorge to win the sprint and keep the pressure on Pecco taking it to Sunday.
And for me, for the Valencia sprint race, I'm going to keep riding the Jorge Martin train. But looking at the championship, I'm actually going to go a little bit different. while I think Martin gets a sprint race, I think Pecco Bagnaia is just going to barely hold on and win the championship again.
I'm going to go with a sweep. I'm going to go with Pecco Bagnaia getting the sprint, and I think he's going to seal the deal, and the championship will be his. Pecco Bagnaia, the champion. I see Adam going with Jorge Martin and Adelaide 500 Race 1 SVG. That leads us to Supercars.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Martin for the championship too, by the way. I just would love a non-factory bike, proper full factory bike to win the championship. It's never happened before. So there's always time for the first time, and let's hope it can be for that cool story for this weekend. Yes, Supercars this weekend, the Adelaide Velo 500, the final round of the championship. That is up for grabs as well. Brody Kostecki versus Shane Van Gisbergen for the championship. Adam's gone with SVG. I'm going to go with the same for the Saturday race. He's got to keep the pressure on Brody Kostecki, of course, won his championship there last year, did SVG. Did that incredible burnout on the front straightaway when he won the championship. So I'm going to go SVG to win the race, but I think Kostecki will just hold on Sunday to take the championship.
And for me, race 1 at Adelaide, I think Brody Kostecki is going to win that, and I think he's going to also lock up the championship with just one more race to go. So give me Brody Kostecki for the championship as well.
I'm going to go with Shane Van Gisbergen. I think he's going to get the race 1 win. But Brody Kostecki, I think he's going to be Mr. Consistent this weekend, and Brody is going to take the championship.
Yeah, Kostecki only needs to finish in the top 8 in both races at Adelaide at the weekend to claim the championship, no matter what SVG does. And of course, his final round as a full-time driver in Supercars with the Red Bull Ampol team. Pick a winner, of course, available across all social medias coming up for the rest of the week for the final weekend of it for 2023. You get your choices in. If you're not going to get your choices in, you can hold on because, of course, it will be back again in 2024, starting with Formula E. I'm sure will be the first pick a winner race of next season in Mexico. Time for Hots and Knots, a Thanksgiving edition of Hots and Knots. And Joe is with us, and you can start, Joe, with your hots from the weekend. Your first Hots and Knots choices of the year.
Yeah, first Hots. Hot Las Vegas Grand Prix, the race, the Grand Prix itself. That exceeded my expectations. The 3-way battle for the lead. I know it could have easily gone the other way if, depending on what happened on that first lap. But that race, considering how much hype they were delivering, I say lived up to it. And Charles Leclerc, what a drive by him, that Ferrari team. They didn't do a Ferrari move to make a mistake. He brought it to Sergio Perez, and that last lap pass, just bringing it down the inside, getting the job done. For Leclerc to say he was so disappointed considering where he's been with this team from Brazil, out of the points, bad luck, and now 12 points away from 4th place in the championship stands for the drivers. Wow, they have really turned it around. And Ferrari, they could overtake Mercedes for 2nd place. What a shock. We would not be saying this, I think, at the beginning of the season. Those are my hots from the weekend.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, it was looking odds on that Hamilton would end up overtaking Checo to 2nd in the drivers, and Mercedes would hold on to 2nd, and now it looks like they're going to get neither of those. I'm not sure I've got many hots. I've not watched the Grand Prix yet from Las Vegas, but so I can't really comment on the racing. I'll comment on my knots in a moment on it, but I'm not sure I've got a hot, apart from the fact that it is Adelaide, which is one of, if not the best street circuit in the world coming up this weekend. And we've got Supercars Championship to wrap up. Porsche's, their championship goes down to the wire. And one thing that Kobe didn't mention in the news segment is the championship leader in Porsches in Australia, Callum Hedge, coming to Indy next year. That's going to be exciting. Watch out. That kid is very, very fast. We've also got Touring Car Masters Championship wraps up at Adelaide this weekend. That championship's to be decided. And as I mentioned earlier, GT World Challenge Australia as well. So 4 championships to be wrapped up on the streets of Adelaide this weekend. And the practice stream on the Supercars YouTube channel starts in about an hour and a half. So if you're watching live and you've got the Super View, then get onto that in not too long, because there's Thursday action on track at Adelaide in the next couple of hours. What about knots, Joe? I'm sure there's something we need to talk about from Vegas at the weekend.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of knots from Vegas. I know you probably hit the ones I don't mention, but for me, I think the biggest one And this is something Jackson mentioned. I know we're in Vegas. You want to play up a lot of the Vegas stuff, like the casinos. We see NASCAR do this too with all the little jokes of who's going home, who's going to bet the house, all this. I get that, but we don't need a car ride from where you park for me to the Bellagio to do an interview, then back. Donny Osmond singing the national anthem. I know you want Vegas celebrities, but when was the last time Donny Osmond made big news? Could they find another singer that was a little bit more current from Las Vegas, or even an athlete there, just somebody? I mean, goodness, we didn't have Wayne Newton there. I feel that would be a much older generation that would appreciate him. But the race itself, it did great. I don't think we need to dive down so much on all the cliche Vegas stuff to be said. Another nod for MotoGP, the fact that they were telling Fabio Di Giannantonio, who doesn't have a ride next year, map in eight. Map in eight. Now, we know Fabio said, oh, that's just to remind me of my lap time. But if we've been around, we know that was not the case. And here's the thing, you don't have a ride. Malaysia, you've got some bad news. Pecco's not your teammate. Yeah, Ducati gives you the bike that's a year old. If you're bringing it to him, if you're going to try to go for your first race win, Grand Prix win, ignore it. I'm glad he got that win. Don't make it easy. And Pecco almost threw it. Can you imagine if he went out, championship wide open? Oh my goodness. This was great racing. Don't let team orders come in, and especially this isn't your teammate. Yes, I know Ducati gives you the bike. What are they going to do? You're going to get replaced by Marc Marquez. They're not going to just ruin a deal to get them the next bike because you went for your first win. Fabio did what he had to do to get that win. Congratulations for him. And ignoring is it still team orders or is it more like manufacturer orders? But yeah, that was my big nod to Mappin 8.
Yeah, I agree. Non-MotoGP viewers, Mapping 8 is the Ducati team orders code that they put on they've not got radios, of course, in MotoGP, so they have the dashboard readout, and Mapping 8 generally is some sort of let the guy behind you through. We've seen it before from Ducati, and it happened again at the weekend. I'd forgotten all about that until you mentioned it, Joe. Great for Fabio Di Giannantonio to get a win and give the big V's to Ducati on his way out. Yeah, thanks for giving me the sack, boys. And now I've taken the trophy home with me. And it may have cost your guy the championship this weekend. Who knows? That extra 5 points could be key. But yeah, that was very cool to see. Another knot from Macau. Adam says, what's hot is Adelaide 500 and happy Thanksgiving. Hot is the 500. Thanksgiving tomorrow and the Las Vegas Grand Prix from the weekend. Another knot from MotoGP land from Qatar on the weekend was on Saturday qualifying for Moto 3, where we know in Moto 3 you need to follow someone to get the slipstream to give yourself a good lap time. Well, there was 6, 7, 8 Moto 3 riders stopped with their thumb out, basically waiting for a lift in qualifying, literally stopped. They were not moving. There was all sorts of fractious stuff going on in MotoGP with the Espargaro and Morbidelli stuff going on as well. And then in the Moto 3 race between the Leopard teammates. But the qualifying stuff was absolutely shocking. And all of those riders should have been sent home and not gone to Valencia either. Me and Josh have talked about this a lot this year, that MotoGP stewarding has been absolutely shocking at times this season. And that, again, not sending those guys to the bus or back to the hotel and saying you're not coming out until you've owned up to what you've done in a naughty schoolboys kind of way at the weekend was pretty wrong. Not from Vegas, of course. All the stuff that happened on Thursday with the drain, the damage to Carlos Sainz, the fact that force majeure is not being used when this is clearly force majeure, and he ended up getting maybe lost the way the Ferrari pace was. Maybe he had lost the chance at winning the race at the weekend with his pit lane start, and then them not giving him any stuff back. It looks like Ferrari are now going to try and claim some compensation for the damage, I was reading today. So that's going to rumble on for the next couple of months or whatever through through the postseason. Obviously, what happened with the fans on Thursday was not good. Yeah, I understand it, but this is why we put practice sessions on during the daytime and not during the middle of the night. There was some stories on Monday that they're already talking about moving the race start time up for next year. And yeah, that was just, again, America and Formula One shoot foot all bullets straight in. Me and Ben talked about it last week about Indianapolis 05. It couldn't get any worse from that. And straight away, 20 minutes into the first practice session, we had all that drama. So that was obviously a huge knot. And Abu Dhabi this weekend, I'm kind of be glad this Formula One season's over because it's dragged on and on. Max is winning. Oh, talking of Max, his speech on Wednesday, Thursday, I lose track of what day was what with the Vegas weekend. His speech about all the showy stuff was all well and good, but then he ended up wearing his Elvis suit thing at the weekend and did his Viva Las Vegas across the line. Is that not the same? Is that not the same thing? You can't have one without the other. I just thought that was a bit silly that he had that great spiel on in the press conference and then flip-flopped on it when he won the race. I just thought that was a bit naff from Max. I think that's it. I think from Hots and Knots, there'll be plenty to talk about next week, of course, with all these championships being decided. And we'll have all kinds of drama and headlines, I'm sure, to come. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. A happy Thanksgiving for all of you guys stateside for tomorrow while I'm slaving away at work. And that's pretty much it for Grid Tonight for this week.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Taking a look at our upcoming schedule. Saturday, Grid Live pre-race, where we're going to preview Formula One, MotoGP, their season end races, and of course, Supercar Series. Race 1 will probably be done. We'll recap that, and then Race 2, preview that race. Then Sunday, Grid Live wrap up. Both of the shows will be on noon Eastern to conclude our final weekend of races in 2023 in the Grid Ranking. We want to invite everyone, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for helping us reach the milestone of 770 subscribers. Now, help us reach our new goal of 800 subscribers on the road to 1,000. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notification when we go live on the air, and follow our social media platforms, and visit gridranking.com for the latest articles from our writing staff, and take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew investing in the Grid Network each month. You too could get some Grid Network stickers as well too. We encourage you to join this amazing group of people who keep us on the air. Once we hit $500 a month, we can start sending our teams to the track to cover more races and continue expanding our coverage, including now the Portland E-Prix is 2 races for Formula E. So already we're expanding more and more. Let's send our team across the globe to cover motorsports. Link in the video description to invest, and one-time contribution option through Buy Me a Coffee link. Get your name on the board and invest as much as you want. Consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they'll thank you on the air. You can also support us by donating during our live stream through Super Chat. So definitely encourage everyone, show your support for the Grid Network, invest in us, share with your family and friends that love motorsports, and of course, we love to hear from you in the comments section. We'll respond back. For Kobe Lambeth and Matt White from the Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.